All right, so we're back at home, as you can see, and we have some good news and some bad news. So the good news is we got our plans for the shop from our architect. The bad news,
What's the bad news?
they weren't exactly what we wanted.
Oh, well,
But
that's to be expected because this was just the first draft.
right. But one of the things I thought we can talk about is more about the difference between a pole barn type architecture and a stick frame, and what you didn't like about the way that our architect designed it.
So, a pole barn is just that. It's basically a barn or a
It
structure.
doesn't have to be a barn, right? Just a
It
structure.
could
They
be any
call it.
structure. Now there's barn dominiums and
Mhm.
so I guess in saying that this is kind of a barn dominium that we're building, not necessarily your traditional barn look. It's a shop.
With an apartment.
I'm building a shop that's got an apartment on it, a 1-bedroom apartment. But what I wanted was a pole barn structure, and what that is actually poles, timbers, in the ground, which are there's many different ways to do it, but basically the poles are your structure, as opposed to a typical or conventional stick-built, wood-framed home or structure, which everyone's seen. You know, you got all the 2x4s all stood up on a wall with plywood sheathing and all. When a typical home is built, that is the structure. Those walls with all the 2x4s or 2x6s are the structure. In a pole barn, the poles are the structure.
Also, doesn't it have something to do with the concrete foundation? The way they're set in the footings?
Yes. When you're doing a traditional stick-built home, the slab is poured first with footings all the way around, and anywhere you have load-bearing walls, there has to be a footing added for that. With a pole barn, you don't have any of that because the poles are the structure. The poles bear the weight of the building.
And a pole barn is normally a little less expensive to build than a stick frame.
It is, because it's less timber or less wood timber that you have to purchase to build. It's less labor intensive.
And I was asking you about the advantages and disadvantages of pole barns versus stick frame. And besides the cost, one of the things you mentioned was on a pole barn type construction, you do lose a little bit of interior space with the poles.
You do, because depending on the size of the barn or shop that you're building determines the size of your poles. In our case, we're looking at 6x6 poles, which is nominal. That's 5.5 inches. So a typical home is built out of 2x4 studs, which are actually 3.5 inches. So we're losing 2 inches. I guess if you want to talk about the size of a room, we could be losing up to 4 inches on the interior width. But we've made up for that by extending the overall width of the room so that we maintain our 14 feet that we wanted.
So originally when we met with the architect, we told him we wanted a pole barn. And Chris drew up a pretty detailed plan that showed the details of the poles, where they were to be met the ground. I don't know what you call that. And then also like the spacing of the poles and whatnot. And when he came back with the first draft, it wasn't quite what Chris wanted. So he decided just to let him go with it. You know, he's a professional architect. Let's see what he has to offer. Well, we did get this full set of plans back, and Chris has really been mulling it over, thinking maybe we should go stick frame, but I think ultimately we've decided pole barn is the way to go.
So I guess to back up a little backstory, when we first started talking about this, there's another YouTuber out there, Kyle, and forgive me, Kyle, if you ever see our show. I don't remember your last name. R&R Buildings.
It's kind of the idol.
Gosh. Yeah, he is my idol. If he would come do work in Louisiana, I just
hand it over.
Give him the property and say build it.
He's out of Illinois.
He is a wealth of information and just
Anybody who's ever seen them knows what we're talking
Go
about.
watch R&R buildings and see how Kyle and his sidekick Greg build these massive barns, just the two of them.
And the detail.
It's incredible. And he spends so much time educating the viewer on what he's doing, why he does it, all the trial and error he's been through. So I've learned a lot. You know, I go back to my son when he was 16 years old. I come home from work one day and he's got the front of his truck all pulled apart. And I'm like, son, what are you doing? I'm changing the water pump. How did you learn how to change a water pump? YouTube.
YouTube mechanic. So
Pretty much anything you want to learn how to do, you can learn how to do it on YouTube.
that's right. And
May not be an expert, but you can get the gist of it.
so we have built pole barn structures before, like
Yes,
the Grand Isle
yes,
Camp and stick frame. But I think there's a time and place for each one of them. Our home will be a traditional stick
Yes.
frame home, but we really decided that I think the pole barn way is the way we want to go. Just to kind of look over the cost of this, we're paying $2 per square foot for these plans, and we
That's $2 a square foot under roof.
under roof. So right now, our initial estimate for this 40 by 40 structure was $3,200, but we do need to. He's going to charge us extra for the porches. So that's what our cost is so far with this. And now I'm going to turn the camera around just so you can kind of see the plans and how Chris is changing them.
I will say one good thing about him, and we're not finished yet. So
Right.
the good thing about him is, though, it's a flat rate. He doesn't charge for changes. If I come back and want to move something, he doesn't charge for that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and
it's a flat rate pricing per square foot, which that's good. So
Yeah.
that was kind of one of the reasons we went with him. Plus, he had some very good references. So
right, he's a retired architect, but and it took him 3 weeks just to develop this full set of plans. That wasn't bad.
yeah, so basically, this is the first draft, full set of plans, and like I said, he knew he expects changes. We expected changes, so that's what we're going over tonight. Things that we want to move and
Okay, let me
hopefully get to
turn the
end
camera
of it.
around. Okay.
All right, so this is our floor plan. You can see living room, kitchen area, bath, and a bedroom. This area is all the shop. Over on this side, you see door schedules, which is basically us showing sizes and of the doors and what we want. And we've already made some changes. So we think in the future, I'm back up again a little bit again. We also have a wraparound porch. We think in the future that we will probably extend this porch all the way across the front of the shop. So this was originally a 12 by 12 door, which I'm reducing to a 10 by 10 door. That way I don't have a porch height that's up in the sky. I don't want it to be that high. Anyway, so, and we're gonna move it over to this side, whereas it was kind of centered. We had an 8 by 8 overhead door on this back side wall, which I'm moving to the back wall to give me kind of a pass-through area.
And nice wind flow as well.
Yeah.
And the way these poles are now, this is the traditional like stick frame,
I'm
right?
gonna show that
Okay.
on the civil drawing, the foundation plan. So this is just elevation shots, front elevation. You can see we're gonna move this door over. This window is gonna get relocated. So the door is actually gonna be kind of here. This is the rear elevation. So front, rear, which there's currently a overhead door on this side wall, which we're gonna relocate to this back wall. That's this door here that's getting relocated. The window that was on the front wall, we're gonna relocate to this back corner of the side wall. Just showing the wraparound porch on the side. A little section shot showing how the porch is gonna tie into the structure of the building. So this is just a typical section drawing. This is if you were inside the building looking out the front.
Yeah, that one kind of confused me.
I'm sorry, I told you wrong. This is inside the building looking out the back,
Okay.
because this is the back entry door. This is the bedroom, this is the back wall of the bedroom. And really all this is showing is the girts that run between the poles. That's what these are called, girts.
Which is kind of weird because he kind of designed a hybrid, right? Like he designed it kind of stick
Yeah,
frame and
so-
sort of pole barn.
And I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
He's saying that we need to add poles on either side of every door, which with pole barn structures, that's not necessary.
That's not how Kyle does it.
That's not necessary. So that's what I got to talk to him about, and I want to make some changes. And he's pretty open to changes.
Yeah.
So this is where we get into the pole foundation drawings. So when our original discussion with him was 40 by 40 pole barn, poles set on 8-foot centers, and obviously some poles have to be shifted one way or another for overhead doors, just to make things work. And really, for our purposes, the only poles that needed to be shifted off of the 8-foot centers is for, excuse me, the overhead doors.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, he has poles set at 13-foot 4-inch centers down the wall of the apartment, which is too much of a span for your typical 2x6 girt. What I want is 8 foot on center.
And a girt is just a 2x6 piece board that connects the
Well,
two poles.
girts
right?
can be any size. If you put your poles, 4 to 6 feet on center, then you could put 2x4 girts.
Mm-hmm.
You go on 8-foot centers, you put 2x6 girts, and so on and so on.
It's just a board that connects the poles.
It's just a board. If you had to put it in layman's terms, it's a board. Got 2 poles. It's a board that connects between them,
Yeah.
and that's what your sheathing, your outer sheathing, is going to attach to.
Right.
So, I need him to. I want to get him to move that, and I guess it's kind of go back to the original floor plan. You can see these little hashed lines through here.
Mm-hmm. This
This is traditional stick wall framing because of the apartment. The apartment's only going to have a 9-foot ceiling height. The building is going to have a 14-foot eave height. So between top of or from the ceiling of the apartment to the ceiling or eave height of the building, you've got a difference of about 6 feet. So you have to put a ceiling across the apartment, obviously. But my intent was, again, to have poles 8 foot on centers and do one traditional stick-built wall all the way down the length of the building for the apartment wall, and not have center poles.
Right. And then no ceiling in the shop,
No ceiling in the shop.
which is another difference in the
So
plans.
he has a ceiling in the shop, which you can see on this section drawing. That's the ceiling
Each
joist.
of those is a 2x4,
That's all
right?
ceiling joist.
Or
That's 2x6.
2x6.
So kind of jumping around a little bit, but anyway, so you can see how close he has poles put together. 4 foot 9.5, 3 foot. That's not necessary.
That
You
was a
don't-
window there.
You
He-
don't have to have a pole on either side of a window or just a man door.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is required on an overhead door because you have to have a header across there to support the load above it. This is the ceiling and roof rafter plan. So you can see he's got ceiling joists across the apartment. Yes, that is required. But he also has ceiling joists running the length of the building.
Which would put
Wait,
us,
I don't need that. I don't want it. So what I got to get with him to work on is part of his ceiling joist grid is for rafter supports. Okay? It's got knee kickers, rafter supports, and a ridge support. So what I want to do, if you'll see, this double line across here says engineered beam. This is going to be a beam that runs from the top of a pole to this pole across to that pole. Same thing here. It's evenly split into thirds. So what I want to get with him and do is I want to do away with all of these ceiling joists and I want to add another beam that intersects from the end wall to this beam, to this beam, to this end wall. And what that should allow us to do is we can move these rafter supports. I have to move them a little bit from what he originally has. But basically, that rafter support would come down like so. And then you would have another one. Imagine, because we're moving this door to allow us basically another beam's going to sit right in here, and then you move that rafter support to there. And the way we get away with that, if you were looking at it at a side view, basically you would put a strong back across all the rafters, like so. You put a strong backboard across there, and then you come down at angles to this beam. I hope that makes sense in my little sketch.
And what about the trusses? Will we be going with the engineered trusses?
I don't think we will, simply because in our initial conversation with him, again, since he is retired and he's out of that world of doing
plans
plans in general, he doesn't have a working relationship with any engineers. I still want to talk to him about trusses, but I think it would be on me to go out and get engineered trusses to fit our application.
But you're okay with not doing the trusses?
I'm okay with that as long as I can go with what I have here. If he says, no, we have to put the ceiling joist across here and we have to support these rafters, and this means we're going to have to back up and punt, because that's not what I want and that's not what I'm doing.
Right. Some of what he tells us.
Honestly, I hate to say it, but it may mean us cutting this relationship with him off, because that's not what I want, and I'm not going to settle just because.
And I don't think.
want.
I think he sounds very
I think it'll work out.
Yeah.
So yeah, here you can this gives you a better view of what the wraparound porch is going to look like. And like I said, in the future, we think we're going to probably extend this all the way across the front here.
Just to have some overhead parking, because remember the overhead door is going to be right there. And then just to have more room to do outdoor activities. In Louisiana, we like to boil crawfish and shrimp, and so all that.
I can also show you something I didn't show you is, it's hard to see on the plans, but this will be a concreted apron that comes out roughly 10 feet all the way across the front, or 8 feet across the front. Same thing on the back. There'll be a concrete apron all the way across the back, because remember, this is an overhead door. And possibly in the future, we may put a porch all the way across the back as well.
All right.
Let's see, is there anything else on here? We didn't get to everything. Oh, that's the plot plan.
That's all changed.
That's all changed. This is actually going to get moved way over here now.
We've changed it so many times. We may change it again.
Then you got your typical HVAC plan, which this is probably all going to get scrapped, because I plan on putting a mini split system in. Again, because we're only going to be planning on living in this for a year at most. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But I don't need a full-blown HVAC system in here.
Right. We're going to do that, and we're going to do a wood-burning stove in the living room.
Yeah.
And then all the electrical.
Got an electrical plan. Very generic. Very typical.
Yeah.
Plumbing, which you can see I've already got red lines on it, because the plumbing, he's got all your sewer lines coming out the front of the building. I want them all going out the back. I'm going to have the septic in the back.
Yeah, things to think about.
And that's it. Yeah, a lot of things to think about before you say, we're done.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
wish us luck.
Yep, and next time we'll be back at the property soon.